Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and today I have a fun video to share with you. And in this video I'm going to be doing a couple different watercolor techniques. The first technique that I'm going to demonstrate is how to do some watercoloring with our distress inks to create this fun little background here behind our little critter. And then the second technique is going to be more tips on how to watercolor with your zig markers. So this is the final card that I created, and I used this stamp set here from Craftin Divas, and it's called Coffee Wizards, and I cannot get enough of this stamp set. I think I've created a card now. I haven't shared all of them yet, but I've created a card using every single critter. I just think that they're adorable. Today we're going to be using this little billy goat here, and we're just going to create this fun little magical scene. Hopefully you can see I've added some shimmer to this. I don't think that the camera is going to pick up on it very well, but after I did the watercoloring, I went over the watercolor area with my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and I'm not able to get that to show up on camera, but it's really pretty in real life. I also did some zig coloring on the critter, and then went over that after it was dry with my my sparkle pen, and then I also used some glossy accents on the coffee that's coming from his wand into his coffee cup. So super cute card. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. And so let's go ahead and get started working on some of these techniques. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this aside here, and I'm going to bring over a board. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I use this board here from Simon Says Stamp to kind of do my watercoloring with. It's not required, and I'm not even going to tape it down in this particular video because we're just working on a small area here. So I already went ahead and took a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper, and I used this fun rectangle from the Fancy Dies stamp set die set from Craftin Divas, and it's really pretty. It creates the scalloped outline as well as the stitching, and I just love that. So I already went ahead and did that before coming on camera. Now we're going to be using a distress ink today, and we're going to be watercoloring with it, and we're just going to use one color, and it's Vintage Photo. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, this is just a packaging from a stamp set that I kept, and I save all of the packaging that my stamp sets come in for this very technique. You don't have to do that. Some people I have seen have taken a piece of white cardstock and laminated it with a laminating machine. Basically what your goal is to have a very what is the word I'm looking for, like acetate types, shiny and smooth acetate like structure to create your palette, if you will, for your watercoloring when you're using this technique. You can use, I know that some companies actually have palettes that you can purchase inexpensively. I think American Crafts has one you can get at Simon Says Stamp, but I just thought this was a cheap way for me to reuse some of those stamp packagings and kind of get a double use out of them. So all that you do is you take your little ink, and you could use the full ink pad if you have it, or a little cube, either will work, and you simply turn it upside down and smooth some of that ink onto your palette, like so. And I'll pick that up so you can see a little bit better here what I have done. So I've just put that ink, let me put it on top of the paper for a moment, onto my acetate stamp packet. Now I have a cup of water here, and I'm just going to use a watercolor brush. You don't even have to use anything fancy. If you don't have anything fancy, a cheap water brush will do, a water paintbrush will do. And I'm just going to get this palette here nice and watered up, nice and get it very wet so I can spread that color around. And now I'm just going to add some of that color into the corner here of my fun little rectangle that I've already cut out. I'm going to dip my paintbrush back into the water so I can get this moving again, and just kind of swirl it around. And I've created this fun little, I mean, there was no magic. You guys saw what I just did. I just took my paintbrush and glopped on some of the water, some of the paint with my brush after it was wet. So I created this little design, if you will, here. Design is probably too fancy a term for it, honestly. I just put the paint down. I'm going to dry it real quick. And the reason that I'm drying it is because I want to put just a little more color on top of it. And so to do that, you want it to dry first. Of course, you could let it dry naturally, but I'm doing this for the video, so I kind of want it to go a little quicker. And so I'm just going to add just a little bit more color. So we have some shading, if you will. We're going to go have a little bit darker splotches and some lighter splotches. So I'm just kind of dabbing some of this ink on top of what I've already laid down. And let me get that little bubble ironed out there. Okay, and then I'm going to dry it again. And what's really fun is you can see some of this paint moving here, and that's going to give us some of that really fun kind of drippy watercolor effect when we're all finished. I'm kind of going to tilt the paper a little bit, chase some of these droplets down, and as you can see, it's already turning into a fun little watercolory little scene here. All right, so what I would do now is I'm going to put my cup of water way to the side, or else there will be a disaster. I don't reuse these once I've done them, so at this point I would throw this away. And we are done with our little background here, and I would just set this aside to let it completely dry the rest of the way. Now I already went ahead and did one off camera here, as you can see, and hopefully you can see some of that shimmer. I already went ahead and put down the Wink of Stella on top of this one, so it was basically already done. And each time you do this, it's going to look a little bit different depending on how much paint you put down and how you kind of work it with your paintbrush. This is the final card. As you can see, it kind of goes a little bit further than this sample. And then again, this is the one that we just did on camera. And so you can see it's just got some of those blobs that are darker than others. So you have some texture there, some layering of color, and it's just a real fun little extra addition to add to your card. I didn't quote unquote learn this anywhere or anything like that. I just kind of came up with it. And you know, anyone could come up with this. There's nothing special with it. I just was playing around with my distress inks and decided to give this a try, and I really like how it comes out, especially since I'm creating this sort of magical little coffee scene. I just think it's super cute. So that is done for our background. So we would just simply attach this to finish the card to a brown note card here, and of course I put some white cardstock on the inside to write your message. So the last part I want to demonstrate today is to show you how I did the coloring of the little goat here. So I'm going to bring, I already stamped him out in some Hero Arts dye black ink, and this is what it looks like. This is my favorite ink for watercoloring with my zigs. It dries quickly, so I can get right to work, and it doesn't smear or bleed or anything like that. So this is my favorite for the zigs. You can also use VersaFine black onyx ink. That works very well as well, but you do have to kind of wait and let it dry. So, or you could hit it with your heat gun, I suppose. But this one is my favorite. So I only used a few zig markers to color this particular image. I used brown, a light pink, a gray, a light brown, a dark brown, deep violet rather, and violet. And I'll kind of call out the colors as I go through. I'm also, of course, using my water brush. This is a zig water brush, and I have my paper towel handy to clean my water brush off in between colorings. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in now a little bit so you can see the coloring a little bit better. And I think I just made my camera a little crooked. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to bring him down and go ahead and get started with the coloring. And I'm going to do this as fast as I can since it already took some time in the video with the little watercolor background. So I'm going to start with his head, and I'm just going to turn it because it's a little easier for me. And I'm going to put, and actually I grabbed the wrong marker. I'm going to start with my dark color. I used a two-tone purple on this outfit and wizard hat. So I'm using deep violet and violet, and I'm just going very light around the stars. And if you watched my first little coffee critter video using this stamp set, I explained why I did the hat first, and I'll do so again now. The reason that I'm doing the hat first is because the stars on the hat are going to be a different color. And because of that, I want this to dry before I add that other color in, because if the purple is still a little bit wet, then the new color that I put in will bleed. So I want to make sure that I give this a little bit of time to dry before I go in and do the stars. So all I did there was I laid down my deep violet rather, and I then put some regular violet on there. And now I'm using my water brush to go back in and pull the color out into the white space that I left behind. And that's going to give us this nice, fun, shaded look where we have this darker color that fades into a lighter color. So it looks like there's shadow on our image. And I just love that. And the first, you don't need both violets. If you watched my first video with this stamp set, which was this little card right here with the little raccoon. Whoops, I'm zoomed in, so it's kind of hard to see. But I just used the violet on his wizard cloak, and you still get a very nice shading. This just gives it a little bit more, but again, you can get away with just using one color with the zigs and get a very nice shaded image, which is why I really like these markers. You get a lot of bang for your buck with these markers because you don't really need a lot to get a nice shaded look. So now I'm just doing the rim of the hat, of the wizard hat, and I put some deep violet down, and now I'm going in with the violet. And I'm then going to use my water brush, of course, to blend this out so I get a nice shaded look. And I'll hold this up to the camera in a moment so you can really see how there's that nice gradation of color, which really makes it look like there's shadow on this image and that the light's reflecting. So you can really see, hopefully the camera's picking that up. Okay, and again, I am doing this very quickly, so it might not be the most perfect coloring in the world, but even doing it quickly, I think you get a really nice look with these zig markers. So now since I have my purples out, I'm going to go ahead and do his wizard cloak. So I'm going to put down the deep violet, and just a little bit. I'm very light with the deep violet. I'm just going to put just a little bit for some highlights, and I'm literally just scribbling down a line of color. And then I'm going to take the regular violet color, use kind of a circular motion to go a little bit on top of that deep violet, and then pulling it out. And now the water brush is going to take care of doing the rest of the work for us. So I'm going to use a circular motion and pull the color that I've laid down out into the white space that I've left behind to give us that really nice look of shade. And it's also going to take out the harsh line of the color that we scribbled down. So you don't see that harsh line anymore, but you still see the shading. And so hopefully that is showing up. And I apologize for turning the image. It's just a little bit easier for me to see and not get my head into the camera. So hopefully it's not bothering you that I'm doing this and that you're still able to get the idea of how I color this image. So I put down some deep violet again on this other sleeve, put down the regular violet, and then going to pull this out with my water brush to fill in all of those white space, all that white space there, so we get this nice shaded look. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the jacket, or the, not the jacket, I'm sorry, the front. It's been a long, fun, but long weekend. So when you have two little ones, you're pretty busy in the summer. So anyway, I'm going to do the same thing here with the robe part of his wizard robe here. So I'm just laying down the deep violet, just scribbling a little line down here where I just want there to be extra dark highlights. Now I'm going to take the regular violet color and pull the color of the deep violet out just a little bit. And then we'll use the water brush again to pull that color out and fill in the white spaces. Being careful, of course, to avoid his little beard and the belt, because those are going to be different colors. And again, we kind of want this to dry a little bit before we add on additional colors, because if those new colors hit the purple and the purple is still wet, it can activate and bleed. And we certainly don't want that, since we've, you know, worked so hard to color already. We don't want to ruin it. Now, even if the color has dried, it can still reactivate. It's a little bit harder to reactivate once it's dried, but it still can. And this is just my experience. I'm not an official zig representative or anything like that, so please don't take my word as the gospel when it comes to zig markers. This is just my experiences that I'm sharing with you, and I have worked with these markers a lot because I love them. But in my experience, even if the color is dry and you add a new color, or even your Wink of Stella glitter pen, it can still reactivate a bit. So you just want to keep that in mind and be careful and do your best to keep the new color out of the color that you've already laid down. But it isn't as big a deal, again, in my experience, if the color is dry. It's a lot less likely to do it, in my experience, to bleed. That's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so here's our cloak completely done, our wizard robe completely done, and I think that's really cute. I really like that purple. So now we're going to go ahead and color our goat, and we're going to do this very quickly here. I used light brown and brown as my colors for the goat. Since the brown is obviously darker than the light brown, we're going to put that down first, and I'm just going to scribble on kind of around his face, and I'm just doing a little line here underneath his little horns. and around his face and above his nose, where I think it would be, there'd be some shadows that you'd get. And then I'm going to take the light brown and in a circular motion kind of pull that brown color up and blend it together so it's nice, so we get a nice color. Now you could just blend this together and be done and not use your water brush, and it would be lovely. And I'm going to show you some videos where I don't use a water brush at all with these zigs, and it works great. But I like the water brush personally a little bit better because I feel that it really gives a little bit more shading to the image, so you get a little bit more of that dramatic lighter color, which I really like. So it kind of reminds me of when I would work with my Copics and I would leave some parts completely white just for that sort of more dramatic and shading, more emphasis on the shading. And that's kind of what I like with the zigs. While not leaving it completely white, I'm still getting some very dramatic shading with the water brush that I don't always get when I'm just using the zigs by themselves. So that's just something to keep in mind, but I will do some videos with just using the zigs without the water brush to show you what that looks like here in the near future. I went out of the line just a little bit, so as I've demonstrated in other videos, I'm just taking some clean water from my water brush and dabbing it with my paper towel to get that color off, and it works perfectly. And you will not see at the end of the day that I went out of the line there, which is really nice. I probably won't have to go over it a few more times, but it will disappear, which is really, really nice feature of the markers. So here I am just doing his ears with the same brown and light brown color scheme. And then I'm going to take a little bit of light pink and do the inside of his ears and his little nose. So let me do that quickly here and get his nose. And now I put a little bit of color on accident inside of his glasses. So I'm going to do the same thing, just take clean water from my water brush and move that color out. And again, I might have to do that just a couple times more before I would be completely finished and ready to put him on a card. But if you work at it, you can generally get that to go away. Oops, I may have been a little bit off camera there. I apologize. All right, so now it's time to do his little hands, and we're just going to use brown and light brown again on his hands. You can't see a whole lot of his hands because he's holding a wand and his coffee cup. So I'm just going to do a little bit of coloring here and use my water brush to fill in the gaps. And then we're going to do his wand, which I used a deep brown. I'm sorry, dark brown is the color that I used for his wand. And just doing some highlighting. I did not use another color. I just used the dark brown and then used my water brush to pull that color up into the white spaces. And I'm very careful when I have very thin images like this. That's why I love, you can do this technique with a paintbrush instead of a water brush if you don't have one, and you would just dip the paintbrush into water and use the same technique. But I really do like having this water brush because it's so thin and it has such a tiny tip that I can really get into small spaces like that and do my shading. I'm just using a light brown alone for his little beard here. And then I'm going to do his hooves and his horns in a gray. So I'm going to bring my gray color over, make sure I'm still in frame here, and I'm just going to use gray alone, that's the only color here, on his hooves and on his horns. And now I'm going very quickly, and you can see there, I literally just put a line of color. It doesn't even necessarily matter a whole lot where I put it, because with using my water brush and blending it out, you're not going to see the harshness of the line. And I'll show you what I mean here. So I just kind of put some color down on these feet, on the hooves here, and you can't even see the harshness of the lines that I put down. It all blends together and blends out to create some very lovely shading. Now I'm going to use yellow, and this is a color I actually accidentally forgot to call out at the very beginning when I was going through the colors. I'm going to use yellow for his belt and for the little tie of his beard, and I didn't bother to use my water brush for that because it's such a small space. And now we need to do the coffee. So I'm using dark brown and brown for the coffee. And for the dark brown, and I'm going to put the dark brown down first, and I'm going to put it here and then just kind of all around in these little crevices where I feel it would kind of be the darkest. If this was a real stream of coffee, of course Unfortunately, we can't use magic to bring us coffee or caffeine in the mornings, but if we could, and it looked like this, there'd probably be some shading in some of these little crevices and grooves of the line. So now I'm going to take my brown and pull the color out from the dark brown area into the white spots that we left behind. And so I'm just kind of going slightly over the dark brown and beside it to pull the color out so we get some nice blending of those two colors. And now we'll use our water brush to do the rest of the work. So we'll just take this water here and pull it up and down, and then here pull it down and then up this way as well. So it's kind of cool that you can pull it in different directions using the same kind of little glob of color that you scribbled down with the marker. You can then take your water brush and kind of spread it in all different directions, which is really nice. Just further shows you don't have to put a lot of color down to get a nice blended look. And I'm doing this very quickly, so I'm going out of the lines just a little bit. For this particular image, it won't matter because I'm going to cut it out. But if I wasn't going to cut it out, I just use that clean water technique I've showed you to put it back, you know, to erase that color that went out of the lines. All right, we also have a little bit of coffee in the cup itself. And I'm not going to color the little droplets because, again, I would be cutting this image out. So those little droplets are unfortunately too tiny to cut out. So I would just have to eliminate those from the final product. And then one last color that I forgot to call out at the beginning is blue. I decided to color his little coffee cup here a blue color. So I just thought that would go kind of nice with the purple that's already in the picture here. So we just scribbled a little bit of blue down and pull that out with our water brush. Okay, so the very last thing that we have to do are the little stars on his hat. It should be dry enough now to go ahead and add this new color. And I'm using brown and yellow, and I'm literally just putting a little dot of brown on each star. And then I'm going to take the yellow and blend it. I'm not using my water brush for this. By putting that tiny little dot of brown, you get a slightly darker yellow, and I really like the color. So that's why I do it that way. And then I scribble off the yellow onto my paper towel so I don't, so I get that darker color off the tip of the marker. Okay, so here's our little guy. So now, basically, just to show you quickly how I would finish the card, I won't take your time to do it on the video, but let me go ahead and cap my water brush so quick. I'm gonna zoom back out and show you kind of the card all finished. So here is the little guy that we just colored. You can see, even doing it very quickly, you have really nice shading there. To finish this guy off, of course, I would cut him out, and then I did use an X-Acto knife to kind of go around this whole area here. And as you can see on the finished card, it looks so cool to have that white space gone and it's all popped up and that white space is gone. So it really looks like this coffee's coming from his wand into his coffee cup. So this is the, well, actually, this is the watercoloring with the distress ink that we did on camera. This is one that I did off camera before coming on, and it has some of the glitter from the glitter pen on it to kind of show you. It's such a magical scene. I just added some of that glitter. I then would have, I also colored this little coffee bag, which I did in a previous video, so I didn't color that today, but I did use just light brown and dark brown to color the coffee bag and the coffee grounds inside of it. The Coffee Mischief Managed is this little sentiment here, and I just stamped it in the top right hand corner, and I also stamped some of the little beans, which are right here in the stamp set, and just colored them with a dark brown in my water brush. And then I added a little twine bow to the top here, and then I added, of course, some sequins. The sequins came from this set, which is brand new, being in this release from Craftin Desert Divas, and I just pulled out some of the kind of dark orange that almost look brown. And I thought that was really pretty. And then the stars come from a Lucy's Cards Copper Kettle set. And so I added some stars as well. And so guys, that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and this will give some of these techniques a try. And it's so easy to watercolor with your distress ink. So I hope that you guys will give that a try as well. If you have any questions, as always, send me an email or post a comment. I'm happy to answer them as best I can. And thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you will head over to Craftin Desert Divas. These images are so super cute, and I had so much fun working with them. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.